It's August 6th, 1945. A man is standing exactly 3 kilometers from the epicenter of the most powerful weapon humanity had ever unleashed. Standard blast models at the time suggested that at this proximity, the energy density is high enough to reduce almost any organic matter to ash. His name was Tsutomu Yamaguchi, a 29-year-old engineer visiting Hiroshima for a routine business trip. It was a perfectly ordinary morning. People were commuting, streetcars were running, and Yamaguchi was simply preparing for his final day of work before heading home. How a human body remains intact when standing 3 kilometers from a weapon that vaporizes steel is a question of both extreme luck and brutal physics. The sky tore open. A blinding flash of light, brighter than the sun, instantly swallowed the morning calm. In the space of a single breath, a functioning, populated metropolis was replaced by crushing pressure, swirling fire, and an eerie, absolute silence. In a fraction of a second, the rules of warfare changed. An entire city could now be erased before its residents even heard a sound. Plotting ground zero, a 3-kilometer survival ring radiates outward. The first lethal force, thermal radiation, drops off significantly by this mark, causing severe flash burns, but not incineration. The second force, the overpressure shockwave, also drastically drops here. It ruptured his eardrums, but that precise distance kept the concussive force from reaching the thresholds required to liquefy his internal organs. Yamaguchi's survival was a cold calculation of distance, a byproduct of the physical laws governing energy dispersion. Time unfreezes. Yamaguchi woke up buried in the dirt. Above him, a black rain of ash was falling over a burning, unrecognizable world. All around him, tens of thousands of people had simply ceased to exist. His eardrums were shattered. His skin was horribly burned. Yet, despite the massive trauma, his instinct to survive forced him to his feet. He began to walk. He navigated miles of flattened debris, threading his way through the fiery ruins of a city that had been entirely erased, just to find a place to shelter for the night. Walking out of the epicenter of a nuclear war zone, deafened and severely burned, proved his incredible physical and mental endurance. The next morning, battered and in immense pain, Yamaguchi made a completely logical calculation. He needed to escape the toxic air of Hiroshima. He needed proper medical care, and most of all, he needed the safety of his own home. He joined a stream of refugees, found a functioning railway line, and boarded a surviving train out of the wasteland. He believed he was finally leaving the nightmare behind. He had no way of knowing that every single mile he traveled toward his sanctuary was actually carrying him directly into the center of a second target. The destination he believed was his safe harbor was his hometown, Nagasaki. He arrived exhausted and covered in bandages. Then, on August 9th, exactly 3 days later, the sky exploded again. The Fat Man plutonium bomb detonated right over the city, forcing Yamaguchi to endure the impossible physics of a nuclear blast a second time. Tsutomu Yamaguchi survived both instances of nuclear combat in human history, walking out of both epicenters in a single week. He spent the rest of his life as the ultimate witness to the weapons that changed the world. On the morning of August 9th, 1945, the workday at the Mitsubishi shipyard office in Nagasaki began like any other. Among the employees was Tsutomu Yamaguchi, a 29-year-old naval engineer. He was heavily bandaged, his skin was badly burned, and his eardrums were ruptured, all injuries sustained just 3 days earlier during a business trip. Yamaguchi was attempting to explain the inexplicable to his supervisor, that 3 days ago, a single blinding flash had instantly leveled the entire city of Hiroshima. But the story was too large for the room. Yamaguchi found himself in a state of total emotional isolation, having witnessed a scale of destruction that his colleagues simply could not process as reality. His supervisor dismissed the account as an exaggeration, arguing that no single weapon, no matter how powerful, could destroy an entire city. As they spoke, the window went white. In that moment, Yamaguchi realized that the nightmare he had barely escaped in Hiroshima was not a localized event, but a repeating horror. His warning had not been a reflection on the past, it was the immediate opening act for the destruction of a second city. The weapon that had just detonated was a plutonium bomb known as Fat Man. It carried an explosive yield of roughly 21 kilotons, creating a blast significantly more powerful than the one that destroyed Hiroshima. Seconds after the flash, the shockwave reached the office. Windows shattered, the building's structure groaned, and Yamaguchi was thrown across the room as the interior was torn apart. His body, already suffering from acute radiation and severe burns, was now subjected to a second round of blunt force trauma and flying debris. While surviving a nuclear blast is a matter of distance and shielding, Yamaguchi's presence in both Hiroshima and Nagasaki placed him in a statistical category with almost no other human being. He was now a survivor of 2 ground zeros within the same week. This reconnaissance map shows the Nagasaki impact zone. Yamaguchi was at the shipyard, roughly 3 kilometers from the hypocenter. Moving into the inner rings, his sector falls well within the zone of heavy industrial damage and intense thermal radiation. Once again, Yamaguchi had to find a way through the ruins. He emerged into a landscape of scorched earth and twisted steel, a second city that had been rendered unrecognizable in seconds. He emerged from the fallout as the only person officially recognized by the Japanese government to have survived the core of both atomic bombings. Despite the immense radiation exposure, Yamaguchi lived for over 9 decades, eventually becoming a father and a grandfather. For years, he kept his story private, grappling with the question of why he had been spared while so many others, often standing just meters away, had been lost. Eventually, he decided to speak. He realized that his experience provided a perspective that no amount of data or military reporting could offer. He spent the remainder of his life as a vocal advocate for nuclear disarmament. He was no longer just a survivor. He was a first-hand account of the atomic age, speaking with an urgency that maps and numbers could never replicate. He traveled the world and addressed the United Nations, using his own physical history to force listeners to confront the human reality of nuclear warfare. In many ways, modern society mirrors the skepticism of Yamaguchi's boss in 1945. The destructive power of these weapons remains difficult for the human mind to fully accept as a present possibility. By turning his private trauma into public testimony, Yamaguchi ensured that the details of the explosions stayed in the public consciousness. He spent decades describing exactly what it felt like to be at the center of the flash. Tsutomu Yamaguchi died in 2010, leaving behind a legacy as a man who lived through the worst of history, so he could spend the rest of his life arguing that it should never happen again.